Hey guys, welcome back. Or if it's your first time watching the channel, my name's Chris and I'm standing here in front of the Woodland Mills HM126, and today what I want to talk to you about is what would I have told myself 10 months ago, right before I ended up purchasing this sawmill, knowing what I know now. What would I want myself to know before making that decision? Anyways, if you're thinking about buying a sawmill in the near future, I hope you're going to find this interesting. Let's jump right into it. So the first thing that I would tell myself before getting a portable sawmill like this is to really think about how you're going to set it up a lot better than I did. I kind of just cleared this area out, threw this mill kind of in the middle of the area, thinking that it would be really nice to be able to get around on all sides of it. The problem is there's a lot of things I didn't anticipate, like wanting to build a sawbuck like I have behind the mill, room to pile lumber, and firewood that comes off the mill and stuff like that. So I've quickly filled up some of the area, and I think it would have been a lot better for me to kind of put this mill back as far back as I could, kind of things, and leave myself a wide open area all on one side of the mill rather than have the mill in the bottom or in the middle, because trying to get any kind of equipment in here like a tractor, or I have a backhoe too to move logs, is possible, but it just makes it a lot trickier when you only have about half of the space as I could possibly have, moving the mill and the sawbuck and all that all to one side and leaving as much room as possible on the other side of it for the loading and that kind of stuff. So that's one huge thing that I would love to change, and I am going to change here. So I would have just told myself to really think that through before just throwing the mill out in the middle and thinking that would be the best way to go. So one of the huge factors with owning a sawmill is time management. If you're like me, before owning a sawmill, if you had a project coming up, say building a deck for instance, you know that once you have some free time to start building this deck, you can just run in to the lumber store, get your lumber, bring it home, and just start building. As easy as that. Having a sawmill is a lot different. You're going to have to plan out your projects in a considerably longer thought out process. Um, Depending how big the project is, you might have to give yourself a month after work. If you're working after work on weekends kind of thing, it might take you a month of weekends to, by the time you go back, cut your trees down, get them to the mill, get them all cut up into lumber, stack them somewhere, and then you're back to square one where now you can actually start building your project. So that's just one of the things to think about, is you're going to have to think well in advance of the project you want to build to be able to have that lumber cut and ready to go. So sure, you're going to save a lot of money by having your own sawmill, cutting your own lumber, but just recognize that you're also trading a lot of your time to be able to do that. So I would say it's something that you're going to make sure that you really think you're going to enjoy doing this. Don't do it just specifically for the monetary reasons, because you're going to trade a lot of your time cutting up this lumber, and depending on how much you value your time, if it's something you're not really going to enjoy, it would be a lot easier and a lot quicker just to run to a store and buy the lumber, obviously. So I just thought I'd throw that in there, that if you're doing it specifically for monetary reasons, might not be the best idea, but if you're doing it because you think it's something you're going to enjoy and you don't mind trading your time of sawing the lumber up, then I think it's a great idea. While we're on the topic of time, I'll just tie it into considering how long the lumber you're cutting is going to take to dry. I know for a lot of outdoor projects where you're using cedar, spruce, rough construction kind of thing, maybe drying time isn't a huge concern for you. I know that a lot of people do use green lumber for this kind of building. I'm not against it by any means. And for the most part, cedar especially dries really quickly anyway, so it might not be too big of a concern. Where it really does play a huge role is if you want to get into hardwoods, and specifically furniture making or cabinet making, like I kind of have plans to in the future. So if we're talking about some of the hardwoods, specifically like say maple or oak, it can take a long time to dry. We're talking at least a year probably, depending on obviously how thick the lumber is that you're cutting, and your climate, whether you want to pay to have it kiln dried for you or not. But suffice it to say, without getting into too much detail, from the time you get your mill, get it set up, learn how to use it, get the hardwood cut up, get it stacked, piled, dried, and then get underway building your project. From the time you get your mill to the time you end up with a finished coffee table, you're looking at quite a long process. So just something to think about in that regards. So it really does all depend on what kind of lumber you're going to be cutting and what you're using it for. Some of the softwoods that are going to be sought up for building outdoor construction projects, probably not too big of a worry. You can use them, if not right away, let them, especially cedar, let it dry for a couple months, and that does a lot. But I'm not here to debate the whole green lumber building kind of stuff. Just it's pretty obvious that if you're using softwood for outdoor construction, it dries a lot faster than hardwood for furniture making and kind of stuff like that. So just something to think about of what you think your main uses for the lumber you're cutting are going to be, and how long you're going to have to wait before you can actually use the lumber that you're cutting. There's a lot more to learn than I realized. There's a lot more to learn about sawmilling in general, and there's a lot more to learn about the particular sawmill that you choose to buy. A lot of things that go into taking care of the saw so that it keeps cutting good, like keeping a sharp blade on it, how to sharpen a blade or where to take it to get it sharpened, checking on your belts and your bearings, checking your track to make sure it's level, what kind of lubrication to use, how fast to set the drip speed, and a ton of other things you're going to have to learn about sooner rather than later to keep your saw cutting good. And just building off that last point, without trying to sound too contradictory towards myself, I would say do not let any of those things discourage or intimidate you from buying a sawmill. I made tons of mistakes off the start, and every hour that you put into it, you start making less and less and less mistakes, and I still make mistakes from time to time, and I don't regret the decision at all. Usually the worst thing that happens is you mess up a board here or there, no big deal, and you learn from your mistakes and move on, and it's a great hobby. It's going to be a big undertaking, so just be prepared that it's not like a lot of other tools where with very little or no knowledge you can kind of just pull them out of the box and away you go. There's a lot of knowledge, a lot of effort, a lot of time that you got to spend with one of these tools to become proficient at using it, and to make sure that you're consistently getting a high quality product off of the mill like it is capable of providing you. So there's a lot to learn surrounding sawmilling that I didn't really think a lot about. There's a lot to learn. You start off with what tree's good to cut down. Not necessarily tree identification. You might have two cedar trees side by side, same diameter, but the more you learn, the more you can see that one might make really nice lumber and one might not. Once you get it down, having a good way to get it dragged into your mill without getting it all dirty, stuff like that, stuff that's really gonna hinder you once you get it in there. Once you have it up on the mill, learning how to orient the log right so that you maximize the amount of lumber that you're going to get, and also so that you cut it in a way where hopefully you can minimize any warpage or twisting, bending, that sort of thing, so that you end up with a nice straight piece of lumber, hopefully, instead of some warped, twisted piece of junk that you might end up just cutting up and throwing into the firewood pile. I would tell myself, great job spending as much time researching as you did. I spent a lot of time looking at different brands of sawmills, different price points, seeing what you could get from each company for what price, and what did I really need. I feel that I made the best choice for me with the amount of money I wanted to spend and for the type of mill that I wanted to spend. Now, there might be lots of people on different ends of the spectrum that might not want to spend as much money as I did, or people that are comfortable spending a lot more money than I did. And by the same token, there might be people that don't really want to cut as much lumber as I do and people that want to cut a lot more lumber than I do. For whatever your needs are, I'm pretty confident there's enough portable sawmills and portable sawmill manufacturers out there that you'll be able to find whatever you need, and I know I certainly did, and I'm very happy with the choice that I made. I hope a lot of this stuff didn't sound too negative, guys. It wasn't meant to be. It was kind of just, if I was talking to myself, this is what I would want myself to know to be prepared for owning one of these. The last kind of theme that I would want to tell myself is you're not going to regret this decision. There's a lot of reasons why owning one of these is absolutely great. Not the least of which is I could have never predicted the way lumber prices are going now, but that's one huge bonus. Around here, lumber prices have skyrocketed recently, and I can't imagine having to go buy all the lumber for all the projects that I've been cutting lumber for. There's no way I'd want to or be able to afford it all, so it is great in that way. Setting that aside, it's just such a great hobby to have. It's so much fun and there's so much to learn about it. Putting those two things together, I think it's extremely rare and difficult to find a hobby that is this much fun and you come out financially ahead in the end. So putting those two things together, it's just an awesome experience having one of these. I personally, with all the trees here that grow on the farm, find this very fulfilling and rewarding experience. The whole process, going out into the woods, cutting a tree down off your own land, bringing it in here, sawing it up into lumber, taking it somewhere and building something out of it. It's just a great experience, and I am so happy that I decided to get into this. Anyways, guys, that's going to be everything for me today. I really appreciate you watching. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time.